Alright guys, we're back, and this time we have an absolutely insane song to analyze. That song being Enemies, Nag Champa, off of what I believe is their first LP, We've Been Talking. An amazing album if you've never listened to it. Now the part in question that we're going to talk about today starts around the 2-minute 30-second mark. Now at this part we begin getting what I envision as a 9/4 part. There's a whole bunch of distortion, it dies out, and it leaves us with a single guitar line, which is in 9. But the biggest question here is how to perceive the 9. So that's the first thing we'll tackle here. Let's listen to the pattern together, and let's see, where do you hear the downbeat? Okay, so it should be pretty obvious. We have a pattern going, something like that. Now, I'm going to start up here real tiny because we're going to need all this paper probably by the time we're done. Now here, just for a second, I've begun writing my parts. We got 9 over here, we got 9 over here. We're going to have 2 possibilities of the way that you could hear this. And both of them consist of triplets. Alright, so this now gives us 8th note triplets in 9/4. Let's write our 9/4 down. Alright, now part A we have. So this is the way I heard it the first time, which was actually hearing the accent on the second beat. That's still pretty much the way I hear it, but both the drums and a later guitar solo feel it in a different way, even though there are other parts in this part that feel it this way. So it really just depends which part you're talking about, where the one is, and how they're feeling it. So let's do the 9/4 part B. Okay, now with part B, this part is a little more straightforward in that it's just this one actually places the emphasis on the first beat of the triplet pattern. This one over here would place it on sort of the second beat, which would become your ones. So hopefully that's clear as mud. Here I will try to tap it out with to the rhythm of the song. Particularly in the beginning, I heard part A as being the right way, but I actually like part B better in that it's a little easier to understand and to keep up with. So they're both there. Now what we need to do is we need to take this 9 part and we need to play it 4 times in a row. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to lay out 9 4 times in a row. I'm not going to lay out every single triplet beat. We're just going to count these as quarter note beats, and my bubbles are each quarter note beats, and you just need to understand that within each one of those beats there's also a triplet happening. Alright, so there we have 36 hashes. Now I just need to fill in all the bubbles. Okay, here's all our bubbles. Let's add in our hard breaks. And now let's bubble these. Okay, and so here we have all of our bubbles filled in with all of our dots. Now this orange, let's listen to music so we can see how this orange fits into the whole pattern. Okay, so hopefully that's pretty clear. It doesn't matter whether you envision one bubble as one of these sets of triplets or as one of these sets of triplets. It really doesn't matter as long as we're aware that just like over here it's 4 and then 5, and over here it's 4 and then 5. So because this is 9 times 4 and that gives us 36, the next part that comes in is the drums. And now the drums, they play half note triplets. Oh, so that means every 4 quarter notes that we will have 3 drum beats, 3 hi-hat beats specifically. And as we notice, if it gets here and it starts over, then it's not on, and it gets 1 off every single time. So it gets a little bit farther off. Now it's 2 off, do it again, now it's 3 off. So as it goes around, it takes multiple times before it actually comes back around. It's also important to note that the drums are also playing at this one. They begin on this downbeat and not this downbeat. If you're perceiving this downbeat, you could actually think that the drums come in just slightly early, and that's because they're hearing this one. So now to write this part, I need to put dotted lines every 4 quarter notes so I know how much space I need to put 3 circles within. So let's do that now. Okay, so there's our dotted lines in every 4. Now let me put in 3 bubbles equally spaced in there. Okay, so here's our bubbles. I want to note that over here, some of these look like they're a little too close together. I did fix that problem down here, but just so you know, though, these are all equally spaced bubbles. So the hi-hat is cawing all of these. Let's listen to that. So let me put those snares in there real quick too. If you notice, the snares are hitting every other one. And if you can see, this also causes a kind of off, on again, off, on kind of pattern here. And we could say, you know, that every 6 of its beats, it kind of starts over again, which makes sense, except that it's not lined up with the grid here. So it isn't like, so we shouldn't really be using the word starting over because both parts don't loop. In order to get both parts to completely loop back around, we should notice that this part begins with no snare and then snare on the second beat. Over here, we've actually had no snare, so our next beat here will be a snare, and so therefore we know that the next time through, it will go all the way through yet again, and then end up the opposite way. So it will actually take not 4 times through the pattern of 9, it will take 8 times through this pattern of 9 before the full thing has come full circle again. Let's listen to it one more time just to get those snare beats. So the next part that comes in after this are some high guitar plucks, some little staccato arpeggio things. These also have a disgusting layer of weirdness to them. They are playing based on doubling this triplet pattern. So if these are half note triplets, then they are playing the quarter note triplets. Let me write these out below here. Okay, and so man, now this is starting to get hairy. We've actually got 6s over 3s over 4s, but the 4s are actually in 9, and it's about to get even weirder with these 6s because they are playing a repeating pattern of 4s within the 6s. I will highlight this now with colors. So now we got colors here. I want you to note right here, we actually start with 1 purple, then we go to 2 greens, 2 purples for the rest of the pattern. So for some weird reason, this one also starts off. This one actually does begin with this kind of pattern, but if we think about the one purple note here being off, maybe they're thinking of this pattern and they just didn't play the first note on this pattern. That's a possibility too. So maybe all the parts are still thinking of this as the go-to. The purple notes represent lower plucked notes and the green represent higher plucked notes. This does not mean they're all the same pitches exactly, but you'll hear what I mean. Let's listen to it in context. we can hear, even as it continues on into the next part, the green high note of this is actually the 1 on the downbeat here. And it just continues off into the next part without even caring where it is in the pattern. Now, of this pattern that is in 4s, there's also a sort of a 4-chord loop going on in it. So here we have all the parts laid out of the 4. And we can see that it hasn't even finished, and it just begins going into 3 and 4 on the start of the next part. Maybe let's hear this again with music and try to perceive these parts themselves, which particular pitches the high green note is hitting. So yeah, that's a whole nother bizarre aspect of the part all on its own. So now at the end here we come to the next part that comes up, a little guitar solo kind of thing, and it actually plays this pattern B as a melody. So let me start writing that in here. So this guitar part, it plays on every single note all the way through. Maybe not every single note, but it plays on most of these all the way through. It's feeling it very much that way. But it is also, just like the drums, it is feeling in 4s and totally disregarding 9. So it does 1, 2, 3, 4 bars of 4, and then it kind of starts over again and does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars of 4. And that overall gives it the 36 beats that it needs, because 16 plus 20 equals the same 36. So this means our big break occurs right on this one. Put extra marker here. That's our big break where the melody kind of starts over again. I also wanted to point out that this 3rd bar, it sort of fizzles out for a little bit, and then it hits a really high note right here before coming back and starting again. So let's listen to this with the music. So another example of 4 playing on top of all of this. Like, this ending is just freaking mind-bending. We have half note triplets, quarter note triplets playing patterns of 4 over the top of a 9 part, but the 9 part is also being broken up into 4s to make 4 bars and 5 bars with the solo-ish part. You can possibly feel 2 different rhythms to it if you want. And this part, because of the 4s in the 6s, because of the chord loop going on, it also takes 2 times fully through to come back around again. I mean, this is just a master class of orchestration or rhythmic arranging here. This is why we call it math rock. All right, so I think that about sums it up. I hope I covered everything. From here, it just continues on and instruments begin to die out one by one until the very end. But if you haven't listened to Enemies, especially that first album, check it out because it is amazing. It is full of amazing stuff. It's so crazy that such an insane math concept can sound so good and accessible to people who don't really care about math rock at all, but it just sounds cool and good. That's all there is to it. All right, guys, till next time.